everybody. How are you?
Good.
Good. So my name is Rebecca Lane, and I am a regional associate with the University Relations. And this is actually a personal project of mine that I'm going to be sharing. And it started with a problem. And the problem was that I wanted to create peaceful, reflective music for a study hall broadcast on YouTube for my women's Bible study that I could use safely without worrying about copyright strikes. And so the question became, how could I create scripture-inspired study music without formal training in music or theology, and without having to pay an arm and a leg for either licensing the music or hiring a composer to do it for me? So that is where Claude, GPT, and Suno came into view here. So I'm not new to GPT. I started using it almost right out of the gate when GPT came on board. I'm creative. I love to write. And so I became a pro user for GPT right away because I took a prompt engineering class on LinkedIn Learning, and I really loved it because I understood it from a filmmaker's perspective of giving it a character. So, but the problem is that you couldn't, without it being pro level, you couldn't really give it the parameters that you need without the pro level. So I became a pro level user right away. And I set within it really clear cultural, theological boundaries, as well as audience and language parameters. And I did that for a specific reason. And I did that before I started creating with it really at first. And I was using it as in my podcast, I was taking lyrics of worship songs and turning them into deep dive Bible studies, which the large language model was actually perfect to do because it understands language. So from there, I built my own theology focused GPT for my Bible study to be able to use to go deeper into scripture. And we call it going down the rabbit hole. And I also, as that study deepened, as I went deeper into scripture, I started noticing hallucinations more often. So because of that, I had to go back into the GPT and constantly make stronger parameters. And also having it have guardrails and double check itself to ancient Hebrew and Greek texts and everything that's out there. So that taught me a lot about, that shaped me using AI. It built to build the framework first and then to create inside of it next. So just a little bit about what I brought to this project. I had a filmmaker's eye, so I've been writing and creating story since I was 5 and using music to do that. It was actually, I would use Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, all of the different soundtrack star was amazing to be able to write to. And so I brought that further along as I got older into poems, full-on stories. And then I finally jumped into script writing and becoming a filmmaker. And music was a really huge piece of that. And so I had the songwriter's ear, I had the filmmaker's eye, and then because of that experience of writing to music, I actually got to sit down with composers and be able to go, okay, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm feeling, and work with them. So that was all pre-context that I brought in to how I built the Claude project, as well as what I brought into Suno. So AI was really the tool that helped me bring this vision to life. So in this project, I created my own producer's manual. So I didn't use something, there's a huge Suno community out there that are everyday users like you and I, all the way up to professional music producers in Los Angeles and Nashville. And they're all part of these communities. Well, someone created this wonderful document called Suno in God mode, and I took that and I modified it for my specific ambient project. So I had 3 different arms of music: acoustic ambient, ethereal ambient, and cinematic ambient. I brought that manual into Claude and I said, I want to create this specifically for this specific project. But I'm not a music major, and I am not a theology major. So I brought in books from Bigby, from Cambridge University, people who were of the greats that would be my brain on my behalf to create this project. And so here's a good example. But theology is always at the core of everything that I do. That's the starting point. So I started the Living Waters Project, and this is just an example of Genesis 1-2. I went into the Greek and Hebrew, and I actually looked at specifically where, what this overall subject means. And specifically for this, the setting is formless void, right? There's order, there's formless before order and stillness before movement. And that led me to the Hebrew word mayim, which is waters. And this is the first mention of water in scripture. So at this stage, I'm not asking what sound would sound pretty. I would ask what the passage is doing and what kind of musical environment lets someone enter it more deeply. So theology always came first. So I would jump into my Claude project that's already built, and I'm like, here are my scriptures. Here's what I want to focus on. This is what I'm hearing. And it would take its knowledge base of theology and music theory and help me come up with the key, the tempo. We would work on what type of music fit best for the project. And then we would work on the prompting. And the prompting became a little bit more complex as I got to know Suno. And I'm going to try and show, this is what a prompt looks like inside of Suno. So you have a style prompt that tells you the type of music, gives you a full, like, is this cinematic, neoclassical, very, very clear instructions in C major, 44 beats per minute. And then the lyric prompt, which is normally sung inside of Suno, is actually, I'm actually using it like an orchestration. Like your opening is going to sound like this. The next part is going to sound like this. And then the advanced prompt is saying, hey, these are what I want you to avoid. Yes, it's cinematic, but I don't want you to sound like it's a sci-fi movie. I don't want it to sound like it's a horror movie. So very, very specific prompts. Now, here is where the problem came. Friction in the machine. I was on song 5, and then all of a sudden Suno decided to drop a brand new release that brought a really cool feature of being able to upload your voice and record and create music using your own voice. But the problem is it started bleeding into my project, and my project is not vocal, it's instrumental. So all of a sudden I found that this became my nemesis, that I ended up having to generate 538 tracks for 31 total songs in the end. So can you imagine having to sit down and listen for 538 tracks? So that was actually under 6% success rate. So as you can see, the human aspect of navigating this whole project is very much that you're using technology to build this, but the human has to be the person who makes the decision on what fits, what doesn't fit. Now, of course, being the administrative person that I am, I'm very, very organized. I did not go into this without organization. So I have a theological background. So this is an entire theological narrative on the entire project so that I can go back and say, hey, does this fit the sound of what I'm hearing right now? And then on top of that, I went through and created my own spreadsheet to keep track of the prompts. So if it started veering off project, I could find what prompt it started doing that. And what was really awesome about this is I was able to, when Suno started putting vocals in everything that I was doing, I was actually able to take this to the Suno support system and say, hey, this is what your project is doing. I even went back to version 5, a previous version that I started this on, and it's bleeding into my specific project. And they were able to escalate this immediately up to the engineers to be able to tell them what their system was doing. And I told them I was presenting, and I'm still waiting to hear from them on what the answer is for that. That's huge. So The finished project, which is Living Waters, is a theological narrative. It starts with a theological narrative, and then I work with AI to be able to create this project, both the narrative as well as the music. And then what happens is it finishes in that cinematic movement. So, sorry, I get ahead of myself here. So by the end of the process, this has become a set of individual tracks and a complete soundscape that I can use for my broadcasts. It's completely original. I don't have any issues with copyright infringement. And I'm able to also provide, if anybody wants to go in and do a deep theological dive into what prompted this, this project, they can actually go in and it turns into a deep dive Bible study. So it actually has two benefits. So theology drove every decision, and the AI serves that design. So it did everything that I asked it to do and then worked alongside of it. So it was very much like the chisel of a tool for like carving a masterpiece or paintbrush. It became a tool. But I'd love to, if this will work, to let the music speak for itself.